The call that I want to do today is about, I done this call about sometime last year, is on your incoming new lead sequence to make sure that every single lead that you have in your pipeline is accounted for. So hi guys, my name is Sharad. I am the owner and founder of REsimpli. So it's a little information about me. If for those of you who are joining this call for the first time, I live in Toronto, Canada, but I scratched it out because in less than 2 months, I'm moving to Carlsbad, California. So anybody in Southern California, once I move, would love to meet up with you guys in person. Happily married with 2 kids. That's my beautiful family in the picture. It's a picture from about last year, July in Banff, Canada. I've been vegan for last 4 years and I passed my road test on 3rd attempt in New York. I failed it twice in New York and then passed it on the 3rd attempt in New York. I tried it so many times because I was cheap, and my company that I was that I was starting my job with in Chicago, they were paying me $5,000 if I moved on my own. So I just kept taking the road test until I passed. And the first time I ever drove was from New York to Chicago. So that was fun. I'm an active real estate investor in Northwest Indiana. So anybody who's not familiar, I invest in Lake County, Indiana, right outside of Chicago. I'm just in about 4 or 5 cities. Primarily do fix and flip, but our fix and flip is to other turnkey investors, not so much retail properties. I would say we had been doing about 50-50 turnkey and retail flip, but last 6 months or so, we've definitely been focusing more on the turnkey model. It's way more profitable. We control the project, make more money, and then I also own a property management company. So we make a little bit money on the back end also. So it feeds business to my property management company. I own, for property management company, we manage about 185 to 200 units, somewhere in between. Roughly do about 20-25 deals a year. I've done about 750 or more deals since I started investing in 2010. August 2010 is when I bought my first property. I started out buying rental properties, owned 50 plus rental units of my own. And then 95% of them are paid for free and clear. That was my intention from the beginning, to have a very, passive income, and wanted to live debt free. So I had freedom to do other things. And one of the things I ended up doing was starting REsimpli. For me, as a real estate investor, what I'm doing is personal mission to help real estate investors close more deals with less software. That's why I created REsimpli, and everything we're doing with REsimpli is with that goal of helping you guys close more deals with less software. So if you have any questions on any of that, more than happy to connect with any of you and answer any questions on anything. But today's call, and then also if you guys can have your video on, I'll appreciate it. A lot of you guys already do, so I thank you for that. But yeah, if you can have your video on, just make the call a lot more interactive. I can see you guys. Again, I say in all the calls, when I have the courage to have the video on with a face that's so big for radio, you guys are also good looking people. You should definitely have your video on. So the call that I want to do today is about, I done this call about sometime last year, is on your incoming new lead sequence to make sure that every single lead that you have in your pipeline is accounted for. So I wanted to do that. Since last year we've added tons of new features. So I wanted to make sure I covered everything. So I'll go over this. If you guys have any questions, please, put it in the chat or unmute yourself, and feel free to ask your question. So for this one, I'm going to start out with a lead that comes in through incoming calls. So when a call comes in, recently there's only 2 things that are happening. Either you answer the call or you miss the call. So I'm going to go in the answered call first. It's a simpler results that you have. So you answer the call, whether you're answering it yourself or you have call porter taking the call. From there, you're going to ask, some questions to the lead. So there's only 2 things that are happening. Either the seller is interested in selling their property or they are not interested. If they're not interested, you're basically moving them to dead deal. Again, this is based on what we are doing in our business. Instead of, we have some investors, even if the seller is not interested, they're still putting them on some sort of a drip campaign, that's totally up to you. I'm just sharing with you kind of what we do in our business. So if we have someone calling us and saying, they received a letter or postcard and they're not interested in selling their property, we're just taking them off our mailing list. We're moving them to dead lead. But you may have a different process for that. You may put it in a very long-term follow-up. That's totally up to you, but just sharing kind of what we're doing. So if they're not interested, we're moving them to dead lead. And if someone is interested, there's certain information that you want to get, the name, address. And then if you do not have that information, you want to find out whether or not, if they're interested, whether or not it's a qualified lead. So by that, what I mean is, let's say if the lead calls in, they said, yes, I'm super interested, highly, highly motivated. They want to sell their house right now. The problem is it's a $200,000 house and they want $250,000 for it because they had a loan or some, liens on their property. So at that point, it's not a qualified lead. We're not paying $250,000 for $200,000 house. So we're going to move it to a dead lead. Just for us in our business with what we do, we're not working on short sale. If that's something you're doing in your business, then you would have a different workflow for that. And you would take that lead through, work that lead on a short sale process. But let's say if it end up being qualified. And as far as qualification is concerned, there's like 4 to 5 different things you want to check for. First of all is their timeline to sell. If someone is super motivated to sell, but they don't want to sell, let's say until 2024, or like a year from now, then it's not really a qualified lead at that point. You may want to put them on a drip campaign and follow up with them. The other thing may be like the price of the property, right? Like I mentioned, they may be super motivated. They want to sell right now, but it's a $200,000 house and they want $250,000 for it. There's nothing you can do at that point unless you're doing short sale. The other thing would be, their reason for selling would be another thing. Do they have a pressing need to sell, or they're just calling to see if you're, what sort of offers we can present. So again, the way you qualify a lead is very subjective based on what you are doing in your business. But some of the most, widely used criteria is the timeline to sell, how much they're asking for the property, what is their reason for selling. Those are some of the main qualification things that you're using. So again, for us, if let's say the lead is qualified based on the questions we ask, the next thing we're asking of them is setting up an appointment. So we're buying all the properties, we're closing on everything, we're rehabbing them. So for us, we go and look at the property. So next thing for us, what we do is we go through and ask them, hey, when can we set up an appointment with you? So next, if we book an appointment, then we move it to appointment set status in REsimpli. So those are the properties that we have set an appointment for. But for some reason, if they are not willing to set up an appointment with us, the next question is, okay, they haven't been able to set up an appointment. Are they still interested in setting their property, still interested in selling their property? If they are not, if they came to this point, they're not interested, at that point, we're putting them in a long-term drip campaign. So long-term drip campaign would be, where we're following up with them every 2 to 3 months, just staying on their radar. For me personally, what I've noticed is there is no secret sauce to, of course, you always want to make sure you're optimizing your messages that you have on your drip campaign. But if you could only choose one thing on the drip campaign, I would say just stay on their radar, follow up with them, once a month, once every other month, or at a minimum once a quarter, again, depending on the lead. If it's a probate lead, if it's a pre-foreclosure lead, of course, you don't want to wait once every month, once every quarter. At that point, you may want to follow up with them once a week. But depending on the lead time, just the most important thing is the consistency and frequency of the follow-up more than anything else. There's not going to be a specific message that you're going to sell them that's going to trigger them to sell. But if you had to choose one thing on drip campaign, is follow up with them. Just put in a drip campaign once a month, send them a text, call them, just keep it very, very simple. Of course, you could use direct mail within REsimpli. You can send them email, you can send them, RVM. So just use everything you can, but at a minimum, I would say call them and text them once a month or once every other month, depending on, how motivated the seller are. If it's someone who's calling in and saying, hey, I have a property to sell, but I just wanted to see what you guys were offering. I'm looking to sell in, let's say, next year, then that's something we'll follow up like once a month or once every other month, depending on some other situational question that we ask. So that's what you want to do. And then, so let's say we're not able to book an appointment. The seller is still, interested. Are they responsive, right? A lot of times you will notice in your businesses, you're staying in touch with the seller, but the seller will call you. They'll sound super motivated initially, but then all of a sudden they'll just disappear, like they don't even have a house to sell. It happens way more often that, we would want to see. At that point, I would set up a separate drip campaign that's specifically for that situation. So there's no limit to how many drip campaigns that you can set up in REsimpli. The more situational based drip campaigns that you set up, the better. These are a little bit more advanced techniques that you implement in your business. Again, if at a minimum, put them on a drip campaign. Doesn't matter if it's the exact situation. It's more important to stay on their radar, because you're not the only person who's texting them, calling them, sending them direct mail. So it's not like, they're going to remember, oh, I've already talked to this person. Why is he sending me this message? It sounds out of place. Think of, all the emails that we get from all these companies. We don't go through all the emails. We're getting same emails from so many different companies. It sounds repetitive, but the whole point of the email sequence, like or drip sequences, for our purposes, it's staying on their radar. So if, let's say, the seller becomes is not responsive after they showed initial interest, have a drip campaign. If you can do that, if you want to customize and have it, missing in action drip campaign. So it's going to start off with, hey, Mr. Seller, let's say their name is Joe. Hey, Joe, we talked about your property. At this point, hopefully you have their name and property address. You could say, hey, Joe, we talked about your property at 123 Main Street. We were going to come look at the property. Let us know, when we can do that. So at that point, it's very situational to what was going to happen, with that property. Like, you were going to go look at the property. So yes, set it up so you can start the conversation from there. But even if you don't want to do that, at least put them on a drip campaigns. Don't wait to have the perfect drip campaigns before you put them on. You could just put them on a drip campaign. Hey, Mr. Seller, hey, Joe, are you interested in selling a property at 123 Main Street? But if you can make it more specific to their situation, you'll notice at the end of the day, you're going to have 8 to 10 situations, or maybe 10, 12 situations that a seller is going to fall into. So if you have drip campaigns for those situations, it'll help you connect more. So I would do that. Let's say, you're talking to the seller, you were not able to set up an appointment, but the seller is still interested in selling their property. Then at that point, and seller is still responsible for some reason, you're not able to book a time. We'll buy properties from sellers where they're working, night shift at their job. So we're just not able to catch them at a time. So what we have a simple task reminder drip campaign. The goal of the drip campaign is to just set up an appointment. Like, we've gotten to this point where the lead came in, we've qualified the lead, it's a good lead, it's a property we want to buy. The next thing we're doing is just taking them. Our entire drip campaign is based on, hey, when can we come look at the house? When can we, if you have the property address, maybe we'll take it to the point where we know this is a really good house in the neighborhood that we want to buy. We'll just maybe offer, present them an offer and just say, hey, it looks like you're super busy. We'll go drive by the property. If there's any information you want to present to us, provide to us, great. But the goal would be initially to set up an appointment. If not, then we'll make an offer and see our offer is contingent on us looking at a property, and we'll make a safe offer. We'll have our agent run some comps. We'll look at the Zillow value and other properties, depending on what exit we want to do with this, we'll make an offer on it. So any questions on this before we move forward on the not answer?
Yeah,
yes, Shelby, yeah, go ahead. Hey, Phil, how are you, man?
Good.
Yeah, good to see you.
I'm sorry, did you call on somebody else?
Oh, sorry. No, what, did you have a question?
I did, yeah. The appointments, setting the appointments, this is a technical. I noticed a change. You used to set the appointment and it used to automatically populate. Now you move it to set appointment, and then you have to create the appointment separately. Was that intentional?
Yeah, because so we notice a lot of investors are not making an appointment. They're just they never go on an appointment. They're just making offers on the phone. They never go and look at the property. So, we still have, you can still track all the KPIs you could. So for example, if you set up an appointment, it would still track all the KPIs. It would still track everything that it was tracking, but we just removed that option where if you move it to appointment set, so like for us, we'll still keep it as appointment set status, but then a lot of investors will notice they don't have any need for appointment set. They were using appointment set for totally different purposes. So we made it customizable. So now, because it's customizable, we cannot tie the appointment questions to that status because it's not specific. Not everybody's using it the same way. Yeah.
Gotcha. No problem.
Cool. All right. Yeah, and then yeah, Shelby, I will share a link. I put this on a Dropbox also, so I'll share a link to this at the end of the call. And Narek had a question. I appreciate your product. I don't see. What do you mean by turnkey versus retail? Are you doing only single family? So we do residential properties, meaning 1 to 4 units. 90% of what we do is single family, just because of the market that we buy in. It's primarily single family, but we just a couple of months ago, we bought a package of 6 properties from another investor, and all 6 properties were 2 to 3 units. So, but we do anything from 1 to 4 unit. And turnkey properties are properties where you rehab the property and then you rent it out and you're selling it to an investor that's going to keep it as an investment property. So it's a turnkey property, meaning the property is rented out with a property management company in place more often than not. So the investor can come in, it's a turnkey deal for them. They, let's say they buy property for $100,000, it's rented for $1,000 a month, and they're making money from day one when they buy the property. And retail would be when you sell a property to a homeowner. So we have a property going on the market this week or next week for $265,000. That would be a retail property. So yeah, so turnkey would be selling it to an investor that's buying it as a rental property, and retail would be your traditional properties that you're selling it to a homeowner. Cool. And I'd mentioned this on a couple of my previous calls. So we use Roofstock a lot for selling our turnkey properties. If you guys haven't used it, I highly, highly recommend looking into it. They don't charge you anything to list your property. At least they, my project manager manages that. But I would definitely look into that. Really, really good tool to just have like an additional exit strategy in your business to be able to sell turnkey properties. It's been highly profitable for us to sell turnkey properties. So if you guys are not doing it, I'll definitely look into that. All right, cool. So yeah, that was the part where you had an incoming lead come in from your call. You answer the call. The next part is missed call. Let's say for some reason you were not able to attend the call live, or the seller called for like 2 seconds and then something came up, they hung up the call. And so there's going to be 2 things that are going to happen. You get a missed call, either they're going to leave a voicemail or they're not going to leave a voicemail. If they do not leave a voicemail, you have no name and no address, assuming you don't have that phone number linked with another phone number in list stacking. So I'm not going into that, but let's say they leave a voicemail. They did not leave a voicemail at this point. You have no name, no address. You just have their phone number. So the first thing you want to do is you want to call back the seller. Are you able to contact the seller? No. Then you set up a situational drip on them. So let's say you get a missed call, you call back the seller, but you're not able to get in touch with them at that point. You're setting up a drip campaign. Either you have no name, no address. You only have their name available based on, based on public records. You have address available because the phone number matched with another phone number in list stacking, or you have both name and address available based on the phone number that you had, and then you were able to match it with another record in list stacking. So based on the situation that you have, information that you have, you're going to set up a drip campaign. And again, the drip campaign, a lot of these are already built into your account. I would just set it up. The whole goal is when you initially get the call from the seller, whether you miss a call or you attend the call live, that is their highest motivation. So you want to make sure you're trying to convert that lead into a deal, or take it to the next stage in your sales process. So when you get a call from a seller, at that point, what I would do is the drip campaign, the way they built out, the default ones are built out. The first week or 2 weeks, you're reaching out to the seller more frequently. You might send a message as soon as you set up the drip within 5 minutes, and they'll send out another message, 2 messages the next day, then maybe wait a day, send another message. So you do that for like a couple of weeks, then it'll start doing a message once a week. Do that for a couple of weeks, and it'll start doing every other week. So when you're initially getting a call, you want to make sure you're reaching the way your drip campaign is set up. You have higher frequency of reaching to the lead for the first week or at least couple of weeks. Then you can do every week, every other week, and then go on to every other month or every month. The goal is to just bring the lead back to the point where you just bring them back and then start qualifying the lead. So this is in case if you miss the call and you don't have any, or depending on how much information you have, you're putting them on a drip campaign, making sure you're automating the follow-up. See a couple of questions. Sharice had the question, where do you move DNC, wrong number, wrong address, and already stored leads? Do you add them to dead? Yes, we definitely add them. We do not delete them. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So the question was, where do you move the DNCs to do not contact, wrong numbers, wrong address, already stored leads? The question is, do you move them to a dead lead or do you delete them? We do not delete any lead. We move everything to dead lead. The reason being because we have all our prospects in list stacking. So if we move a property, delete them, then we have no way of knowing in our list stacking that we should not be contacting that property. So in list stacking, when we're contacting them, we're contacting them based on whether this property is a lead or not. And especially if somebody is a dead lead, we're not contacting them. So you want to move them over to dead lead so it synchronizes with it syncs up with your list stacking, and it so you're not marking them again. Hey, Philip. Yes, if you want to unmute yourself, Philip has a question about dead leads and disposition.
Yeah, sure.
Philip,
I appreciate
Arthur,
that. Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Hey,
yes.
So one thing I noticed within marking something as dead, of course, it gives us the list to mark it while we're marking it as dead. Now, say we want to, typically we're putting those dead leads on a drip until they basically say either stop calling me or the property's sold.
Right.
I've noticed there's no way to update that disposition with a dead lead. So say they're just not interested in selling. 6 months later, we've got them on a drip and they're like, hey, the property's sold, and we verify that. There's no way to update that record, or is there, that I'm just missing?
Oh, you mean in the dead lead, the reason for the dead lead?
Correct. So that way we're kind of cleaning up our dead leads list as well and keeping track of that, where we can just pull those ones that have already sold out of our drip and focus on some of the newer ones.
Yeah, I'll check with my developer on that and see how you would do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the way the process in our business is, we're not moving anything to a dead lead. So if they're on a drip campaign, we're moving them to a warm lead. Basically, the idea being like we're trying to warm up that lead. And then if they're not interested, like you mentioned, if they say, hey, don't call me again with the property, at that point, we move them to dead lead. But I see how you're using it. I'll check with my developer on that, on how you can do that. But if there's an easier way, but you could always just move it to warm lead and then move it back to dead lead. I know it's like one extra step, and then I'll reset the dead lead reason. I'll ask you again for that. But I'll find out from my developer if there's an easier way to update that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Yep. All right. All right, cool. Great questions, guys. All right, so the next step is, let's say if you get a missed call, we covered over if they did not leave a voicemail. The other part is that they actually left a voicemail. So with that, there's going to be two things that are happening if they left a voicemail. Either they are not interested. If they're not interested, again, we're moving it to dead lead. You may want to put them on a drip campaign. So if you have a voicemail from someone saying, hey, I received a postcard from you, please take my property 123 Main Street off your marketing list. At that point, we just take them off our marketing list. We just move them to dead lead, and we're not marketing to them again. Or another would be if they leave a voicemail saying, hey, we received your postcard, want to talk to you about our property 123 Main Street. Depending on how much information they left, either they're going to just leave a voicemail. A lot of times when you send a postcard to someone, they think they're the only person you've sent the postcard to. So they're going to call back and say, hey, received your postcard, interested in selling my property, give me a call, but you have no idea, you have no name, no address available. Or they may say, hey, my name is John, received your postcard, interested in selling my property. Or they may just leave the voicemail with the address, or they may leave the voicemail with both the name and the address. A good thing to do is, when you have a voicemail set up, I would set up the voicemail saying, hey, this is Sharad from ABC House Buyers. Please make sure you leave your name and address of the property that you're calling about, so we can reach back to you. So this way you're, leaving, like guiding the seller to leave as much information as you can. All right, so let's say they leave a voicemail. Depending on how much information you have, again, you're calling back the seller at that point. with the goal of contacting the seller. If you're not able to contact the seller, depending on how much information you have, again, you're setting up the situational drip campaign, depending on how much information you have. So again, the goal is to get them to contact. The drip would be, want to get in touch with you, just you're trying to find more information and then see if you can qualify the lead at that point. Let's say you're able to get in touch with them, you call them back, you're able to get in touch with them. At that point, you're qualifying the lead. Is it a qualified lead? Again, going back to this situation that we talked about here, it's the same process. Right here, you're trying to qualify the lead. And if they say, hey, I have a $200,000 house ready to sell right now, but I want $250,000, it's not a qualified lead. You move them to dead lead at that point. And let's say if it ends up being a qualified lead, they're ready to sell, in next 2 months, 3 months, and it qualifies the price that they're asking for the neighborhood that the property is in. The next thing that you're trying to do is book an appointment. At least that's what we're doing in our business. We're trying to book an appointment. You may just want to make an offer at that point. So your process may be a little bit different. We're trying to book an appointment. If we book an appointment, we move them to appointments set in REsimpli and then just work through that process. When our acquisition manager goes out, then we have our contractors go out. Because again, we're buying all the properties, we're closing on all these properties, and some of them we're doing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 rehab. So we want to make sure our contractors are looking at them. And then if you're not able to book an appointment, you'll notice it's the same workflow that I had right here with the intention of booking the appointment. So once you make contact, trying to figure out, is the seller, they're still interested in selling their property? If not, then you put them on a long-term drip. If they still are, but they're not responsive, then you put them on seller not available or seller MIA drip campaign. And if they are interested in selling their property, they're responsive, but you haven't been able to book an appointment at that point, just for this, you're not been able to connect with them, you're not able to nail down a time, then you just have a drip campaign set up to go to the point of where you're booking an appointment with them. So that's kind of what we're doing in our business. And here's some of the things, like if you have a drip campaign that is no name and no address drip, the only thing that you're using at that point is call and SMS steps of the drip campaign. Because if you don't have any name, if you don't have any address, you cannot send them a direct mail, and then you can send them RVM, but so you're doing call, SMS, and RVM. If you have only name available, you still didn't call, SMS, and RVM at that point. You just want to make sure you are customizing, or you're personalizing, I should say, the drip campaign. So if you have a name available, instead of it just going, hey, I received I received a missed call from you, it's more personal. Hey, Joe, received a missed call from you. So you have that information. And if you have address available at that point, you want to make sure you are personalizing it specific to the address. If you have the address available, I highly recommend use drip campaign as part of your, use direct mail as part of your drip campaign, especially if you're doing direct mail and that's how the lead came in. And now you're trying to get in touch with the seller through calling and texting, but you're not able to. Highly, highly recommend sending them a direct mail, because some of the sellers that you're working with, they may be, older people, and just if initially you were able to get in touch with them through direct mail, I notice a lot of time investors at that point will just use call and SMS to get in touch with them, and then just not do direct mail when direct mail was the initially how you got in touch with them. And then if you have both name and address available, we don't ask for any email address. If you are, I would add email to your follow-ups also. At least in our business, we notice it not being very effective until we get to the point where the property is under contract. That's where we notice it's more effective. But before that, on the initial contact, unless the lead comes in through the website, even on the website leads, for some reason for us, we notice almost all of our follow-up is happening through SMS or call, or through their phone number, and not so much through their email. But every now and then we'll get some seller who's more responsive through email. But make sure if you have their name, address, and email address, you use every single way to get in touch with them. So any questions on this before I go into a couple of other things that I have since we did there? So David had a question. If you block a spam number and delete the lead, will that number stay blocked? I believe so, David. If you block that spam number, if you block a number and delete the lead, it will stay blocked. But again, I personally would not delete a phone number because you have it. Then you may be skip tracing in list stacking and that number ends up matching with another phone number, so you want to make sure you always have that record. Again, we very rarely delete a phone number. I'm just trying to think of a reason where I would delete a lead, but you can always move it to dead lead. It's not, there's no limit to how many leads you can have. I would move it to dead lead and put a reason like spam number or something. Narek had a question, will this recording be available? Yes, the recording will be available. It's streaming live on our Facebook group right now. And it also goes on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. Cool. And Ian, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Where can I get a copy of the lead for presentation? That will be helpful. And actually, let me put a copy of this in the chat. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to put a Dropbox link in the chat. That's for the this right here. So you can download it and just use it as you wish. So, and another question, Narek, if you get a call back, can you not find the property address and contact name, phone number, address by looking up the number on the CA? You definitely can. So let me just quickly go into that. So you definitely can, but I wanted to go through the sequence of where you don't have that information available and you're trying to get that information. So for example, this number right here. So let's see if I had a missed call from actually, let me go ahead and create a new lead right here. So let's say if I don't have any information, the only thing that I have is this phone number. I got a missed call from my direct mail probate list. So this is all I had, right? So great question, by the way. So what's going to happen is, this is why it's very, very important. If you're skip tracing your list, then the cool thing that happens, and it will also happen if, let's say, if I was getting a call from this phone number on my REsimpli app, it would tell me that this phone number matches with other records in list stacking or lead. So it tells me right here that there are 6 match found for this phone number. So if I click right here, it tells me that this phone number matches with these 6 records in list stacking. So now, before I call them or text them back, rather than going back and defaulting to no name and no address strip campaign, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's say this person only had 1 property. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy information. So once I do copy, this is already, so let me look for a different number. Let me see this one. Okay, so yeah, once you go in and you do copy information, it's going to autofill the address and name. So now I automatically have the name and property address available. So at this point, my drip campaign, instead of being, hey, I had a missed call from you, it's going to be, hey, Liang, I noticed that I had a missed call from you. Did you call about your property at 700 East 3rd in Hobart, Indiana? So you can notice, you can imagine what difference would it make in terms of the communication that you're having with the seller, as you're just saying, hey, we had a missed call from you, would love to talk to you. Do you have a property to sell? Versus going from that to, hey, Liang, notice you had a missed call about your property, 700 East 3rd Street. We buy properties in Hobart, Indiana. We're a local investor in that town. We just purchased a property. So there's a lot more context that you have about the property, and it's going to make your conversation totally different. Another cool thing is, once you pull in that record based on the phone number, you get some really cool other information. You find out that this is not a vacant property per USPS. So let's say if it were, then you have another motivation point that you know about the seller. And then you can see, based on the list stacking, this is part of your REsimpli leads and also absentee motivation list, and it's part of, let's say, tag prop stream. So you have all this information. A lot of times, what we notice is we might get a web lead in our platform just based on the phone number and property address. It will populate this, and it will tell us that, this is a seller we had sent direct mail, we had done cold calling to, we had done a bunch of other marketing, but it converted from our website. So we have all that information based on the list that's part of and the tags that it is part of. So what we're doing is, even if we're not going to do like cold calling to a specific list, if it's a really hot list, we're putting it in list stacking, skip tracing it. So we have the phone number, if for no other reason, just to be able to have this information. So when somebody calls us or they, text us back, or they go to our website, submit an information, we have a lot more information about them rather than just having their name, property address. We have tons of other information about them. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking. All right, so Brand has a question. I apologize if this has been asked. How will the AI messaging be affected by drip campaign? Can it update and create appointments? So Brand, so we mentioned on our website, on our Facebook group, and send out an email. We are going to be rolling out REsimpli AI next week, June 1st. It's only going to be available on enterprise plan right now. We'll roll out to other plans later on, but initially it's only going to be available. So the way it's going to work right now is when you get a text message, you can have an option of AI overtaking the text message exchange at that point. So you won't have to reply back to the text. It will automatically send a text message. Just for the initial release, when we go live next week, you can either have a drip campaign on, or you can either have the AI on. So you cannot have both. But once we go live with it in a couple of weeks, what's going to happen is you can have the drip campaign on, and as soon as you get a reply, then AI can take over and the drip campaign will stop responding at that point. So when we go live next week, you will see additional option right here, enable REsimpli AI, and then you can do that. Then it will ask you what outcome do you want for this conversation. So let's say if I go into this lead, right? I do not have any information. The phone number doesn't match with anything that I have in my system. When you enable AI, and we'll do a live demo of this next week before we go live, but I'm just going to give you guys a preview of what's going to be coming. When you do enable AI, it's going to ask you, what is the outcome do you want for this AI conversation? Do you just want to find out if the seller is interested in the property, or do you want to find out if they have the address of the property? Do you want to find out the reason for selling? There's like 5 or 6 different outcomes that you can choose. You can mix and match depending on what information you have. And the AI will take over at that point, and it will have the conversation until the point the outcome is achieved. And at that point, it will stop conversing. Then we'll keep building on it. We'll build it to the point where the AI will even make offers on your behalf, and AI will also set up appointments on your behalf. Again, it's going to be released in phases. There's some really, really cool things that are going to be coming with AI, but your next week update, it's only going to be, so think of it, the purpose for the AI, which we go live next week, is to almost like have your sales team be talking to more qualified leads. So this way the AI is pre-qualifying the leads. I mean, again, of course, the person that the AI is communicating with, they have to be texting back and forth for this release. But like, believe me, we're some really, really cool things we're going to be building on top of that AI. But the purpose will be next week, you choose the outcome of the conversation. The AI will keep communicating with the seller as long as the seller is responding until the outcome, and you can choose multiple outcomes for that. So again, we'll do a live call before we go. We'll do a live demo next week before we go live. Yeah. Shelby said they just upgraded. Yeah, we had a bunch of people that upgraded to enterprise. So again, it's included for free for anybody that's on enterprise. It's always going to be free for anybody on enterprise plan. And also there's some other things we're rolling out on the enterprise plan. So if you haven't upgraded, I highly recommend upgrading before the end of the month. So you lock in that. There's some other, you also get free PPC course that we have with the enterprise. And then we're also rolling out a sales coaching program that we're working on. So you'll have an access to for your team with a sales expert that we're working with in real estate investing field, and that will be included for enterprise plan also. So really cool things we're rolling out for the enterprise plan. Shelby, will we have the ability to use the AI on our website? Eventually, yes. But again, we're releasing it in phases. We want to test out. We just want to release it for text message conversation. Then eventually we'll roll it out on the website, emails, and some other things also. But again, the initial release is just going to be for the text message communication. Once that happens, and once we get the feedback, then we'll integrate it with the drip campaign. And they'll just keep building more and more stuff on top of it, where it's setting up appointments, making offers, and a bunch of other cool things that are going to happen that AI is going to take over. So cool. All right. And then coming back to this, again, we'll do a live demo of this next week before we go live. So we'll send out an email on that. And then another couple of things to make sure that there's no lead that is falling through the pipeline is this section. So anybody in Pro and Enterprise, you're already getting really in-depth summary of daily productivity, summary of what's going on in your business. But I would definitely, at a minimum, I would come and look at all of this every single day to make sure that you have zero lead that is ever falling through the crack. So abandoned leads are any leads that you have in your pipeline. They are not on any drip campaign. They do not have any pending tasks, or they're not on any drip and they do not have any pending tasks. So let's say if I have these leads right here. So for this, I have 10 new leads, and all 10 of these none of these 10 leads are on a drip campaign, right? And 5 out of these 10 leads that I have do not have a pending task. And then like 5 of these don't have any pending tasks and don't have any drip campaign attached. So what that means is no one is working on these 5 leads in my business, because if they don't have a pending task, if they don't have a drip campaign, that means there's no way anybody is working on it. So in our business, we work based on either there's a drip campaign setup or there is a pending task set up for someone to follow up. So let's say if we have a property under contract, or we have a property that we made an offer on. So if we're communicating with the seller at that point, seller is super responsive, then we don't have a drip campaign, then there should always be a task set up for someone to follow up on what's going on in the offer. So for us, anything except dead lead, all of this should be 0. So what you want to do is you want to look at this. If for some reason this is not 0, then these are the leads that nobody in your business is working on. So you want to come right here. If you click on any of this, it will actually take you to those leads. So I have these 5 leads that nobody's working on. There's no drip campaign. There is no task. So if I come in right here and if I set up a task, test, and I assign it to, let's say, myself, and I'm going to make it 1 day. So if I go back, that number now is going to go down to 4. So that means there are 4 leads that nobody's working on. So you want to, once you do that initially, then there's going to be very small number of leads. So it's only the new leads that you have in your pipeline that you're making sure you're getting it to the point that they either have a drip campaign, or they have a task set up, or you have, depending on the drip campaign, they'll have a task set up, and they'll also have like a automated SMS going out. So that's where you really, really want to make sure. And then in future, we'll add also a column on REsimpli AI. So if you don't have a task set up, or if you don't have a drip campaign set up, but they're on AI, the REsimpli AI is talking to them, then we'll have a column for that, so you can keep on top of those. But if you're not doing this, I highly recommend this. Will 100% make sure that there's absolutely 0 lead that you're missing in your pipeline. So I would make sure that you look at this on a daily basis. Again, if you're on Pro and Enterprise plan, you're getting all of this summary in an email every morning. I would look at that and make sure that this is always 0, except for any new leads that came in that I would have on a daily meeting with your call. Make it someone's responsibility to 0 this number out every single day. So any questions on this? And revenue, Rick had a question. Any idea on how far we are from being able to track leads with no address? Can you explain a question a little bit more so I can answer it correctly on like what information you're trying to get about that?
I mean, like if it's a land, like if it's a land deal, like like land deals we're doing.
Oh, I see what you mean.
We can't track it. We can't list that. We can't do nothing.
Yes. There is a way. I mean, we're working on that, being able to put your properties, but there is a way. If you want to send me an email, I know there are other investors that are using list tagging for line purposes, because you have the APN number for the parcel. So if you send me an email, I can make a quick video on and show you how you can still track without having the property address. Okay.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So yeah, again, if you guys are not doing this, please make sure you're looking at this in your business. At a minimum, I would say this would be the most important thing. And then you want to make sure you're looking at this on a daily basis. Everyone on your team should have this zeroed out at the end of the day, meaning they have no pending tasks, no open leads, no new leads that are still sitting in your leads, and no messages from your team that you haven't answered. So start with this and then look at this to make sure you zero out. So another way for you guys to really, really get in touch with the leads really quickly is the speed to lead feature. I believe this is only available for enterprise plan right now. So what this does is if you get a lead from any of these triggers, either you get a lead from your REsimpli website, or you get through Zapier integration, you get, still using Carrot website, you get through Carrot website, or you get through a web form. You can choose, for, let's say in this case, I do through REsimpli website. What you can have it do is the speed to lead will immediately, within 30 seconds or so, connect you with the seller. So the way it works is, let's say someone goes to your REsimpli website, they fill out the form, they fill out their name, property address, email, etc. They fill that information out. Then what's going to happen is, as soon as they submit that information, if you have this on and you choose who on your team you want to get a call. So let's, in this case, I want the owner and the acquisition people on my team to get be part of the speed to lead. What that is going to do is, as soon as somebody goes to your website, fills out a website on your website, fills out their information, right away within 5 seconds, you will get a call on your cell phone, or the owner and the acquisition people on the team will get a call. They will get a text message right away. New lead created will say speed to lead. You'll get the name of the lead. You'll get the property address, and then the lead source. So it'll say, like in this case, direct mail, probate, for example. So you'll get that. And then 5 seconds later, you will start getting a phone call from REsimpli. As soon as you answer that, it's going to say REsimpli speed to lead. Press 1 to connect, or press # to connect. So let's say you press 1. What it's going to do is, if it's calling 10 people on your team, let's say I pick up the call, I say, yes, I want to be connected. I press 1, all the other 9 calls will get disconnected, and it's going to call the lead immediately. So from the time someone fills out a form on your website, within 30 seconds, you could be speaking with the lead from the time they submit the form. So if you're not using this, super, super great feature, especially for your PPC leads, any of your website leads, where someone is going to your website and you're not the only one who's getting those leads. Most of the time, what we notice with PPC leads is the same person is going on and filling the same form on a bunch of different websites. But with this, what will happen is, within 30 to 45 seconds of them filling the form on your website, they're going to be getting a call from you with the phone number that they saw on the website. So everything is happening from that specific phone number that they see on your website. So it's not going through a generic 1-800 number or a random number. Everything is happening through your REsimpli number that you have on your website for that specific campaign. So you are getting a text message from that number, you are getting a call from that number, and the seller is also getting a call from that number. So this is another way on how to make sure you're not missing any lead that you have in your pipeline, and you're getting in touch with them within 30 to 45 seconds of lead being created. So again, it's a speed to lead feature. You can access it by going to manage numbers. And then you see, so if you go to manage numbers, it'll bring you to this page, and then you'll have a column for speed to lead. And then you can configure it based on which lead, what lead triggers do you want this to be enabled for. Cool. A couple of questions. We have a bunch of leads that were uploaded to the not. So Brent has a question. A bunch of leads that were uploaded to not contacted status. What trip do you recommend putting them on so that we have the abandoned lead section cleaned out? If they were put into not contacted status, Brent, I would just start out with, just something. Hey, we noticed that you have a. Do you have their name and property address, or it's just like with a phone number? Let's just say you have, even if you just have their name and name, phone number, and address. Yeah, so I would do something like, with the name, hey Brand, I noticed that you have this property at 123 Main Street. Is this something you're still looking to sell? We're looking to buy a property. And then I would use the city name and the state name as the merge field. And then I'll just start with that and then just build something on top of that. And then at that point, if you haven't contacted them, once you put them on a drip, I would just move them to warm lead, keep them there until they are ready to engage with you. And at that point, I would bring them onto the active pipeline. And again, if you haven't contacted them in a long time, I would just put it so that you're calling and texting them once a month, really no more, because these are sort of like leads that are sitting there. You're trying to re-engage them. So I would do, maybe initially you could do once a week for a couple of weeks, and then just start doing once a month with that. Shelby has a question. Is there an integration with Asana? We're trying to incorporate our Asana task with CRM task. Shelby, we don't have integration with Asana right now, but one of the big tasks, one of the big updates we are going to be making this year is we're going to open up our API so you can integrate with any platform that you want to. So that's going to be coming later this year. So I know a lot of you guys have asked for some integration. So we are going to be opening up our API. So this way, instead of using Zapier, you can just directly integrate with our API. Grant has a question also, is there a way to put a mass amount of people on a drip campaign at once? Not currently, Grant. And honestly, the reason being 10 DLC, I'm sure, a lot of you guys have received email from 10 DLC. And that was the main reason why we didn't want to do that, because it really quickly gets your phone number marked as spam. So that was the reason why we hadn't done that. But once you know what drip you're putting down, it takes like, few seconds to do that. I would just filter it for that and then go right here. For example, I was putting these on some sort of a drip. I'll just come right here and start putting them on a drip, and it will keep you in that sequence. So let's say if I go activate drip campaign, whatever drip I put them on, once I've done that, then I'll just click next, and it'll just go through the whole sequence of putting them on a drip campaign. All right, Rick has a question. This can be done for PPC leads that are not with speed to lead. So if you're talking about this feature right here, yeah, you can use this for anything, but I was saying like the best use case would be for the leads that are coming through PPC, because those are the ones that you really want to get in touch with them immediately. You're paying, like, depending on the market, you're paying anywhere from $150 to $400 or $500 a lead for those. Those are the ones you really want to get in touch with immediately. But you could do them. You could have the speed to lead be enabled for any leads that are coming in from your REsimpli website, any lead that's coming through a Zapier integration, which opens up a bunch of different options, or any lead that is coming through your web form, you could enable the speed to lead feature for. All right, those are all the questions. Any other questions I can answer for you guys? All right. If I can ask for a huge favor, I'm going to put this link for our Google review. If you guys don't mind, if you can go to that link, it'll just take 5 seconds, or just if you got any value from the call or the mastermind calls we're doing, if you click on that link, it'll take you to exactly the page of submitting a review. If you can just give us a 5-star review, it really keeps our team super excited and motivated when they see the review. So I get to communicate with you guys, and a lot of people on our support team don't, or our development team don't. So for them, they get super excited and inspired by seeing the reviews that they're doing. They feel like they're adding value to everything that they're working on. So if you guys can do that, I put a link in the chat. If you click on it, they take you exactly right here. And then, you can just do 5-star review. If you want to, leave any comment, you can do that. But if you can do that, that'll be super helpful. And Narek had a question, where can I learn about the dialer and cleaning up the contact information as we call through and discover inaccurate number and skip trace new one? Narek, if you send an email to support@REsimpli and just have somebody from our support team do a live call with you. So one of the value that you get on any plans, you can do unlimited calls with our support team. There's no cost for anything, whether you're in basic, pro, or enterprise plan. So I would do that. Just send an email to support@REsimpli and ask them you want to book a call with someone on the support team, and just like do a quick demo on how to clean up some records that you have in the dialer, and then they can do that. All right. Any other questions, any feedback, anything that I can help you guys before, you guys go back to your business and make, close tons in terms of deals in your business? No. All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was a fantastic call. I appreciate, look out for another special call we'll do next week, just to do a demo of REsimpli AI. Yeah, so we'll send out an email for that. It will be a separate call from our weekly mastermind call. So, keep an eye out for that email. We'll also put it on our Facebook group. So keep an eye out for that, and then we'll do that. And then in the meantime, if you have any other questions or anything else we can help with, please email us at support@REsimpli.com. Anything that I can help with, my team forwards it to me, and then I personally go in and answer any of those questions that you have. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the call and making it super interactive. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Have a great rest of the week.